Is a familiar face here at Broncos Park, powered by Common Spirit, already finding himself on the bubble ahead of the Broncos' first preseason game. How many running backs will Sean Payton elect to keep on a roster inside what's already a pretty crowded room? And how concerning is the current health status of the inside linebacker room for Vance Joseph's defense? All things to come on today's rundown as we are once again live here at Broncos Park, powered by Common Spirit for Broncos training camp. We did not get another fully padded practice today, and it seemed like for the offense, there was a little bit of some timing and connectivity and cadence issues. Once again, Sean Payton having to huddle up his crew a handful of times to try to reset and get everybody on the same page. We do have officials out here on the field again today, which is proving very valuable. A couple of fun, interesting moments involving them. One, Bo Nix's interception-free practice streak came to an end today. He threw an interception during a team period to new safety Talanoa Hufanga, who crept his way up into the box and then got way up there to pick off Bo Nix for his first interception in training camp. And then later, during another period, Patrick Surtain picks off his quarterback, Bo Nix. But the official throws a flag and waves it off due to defensive pass interference. So technically speaking, maybe Bo Nix only gets one interception on the day, but he did throw two, if not saved by the officials on the second one. Also saw the officials and Sean Payton working with new rookie wide receiver Pat Bryant, who got flagged for not lining up properly, using his feet incorrectly. You saw Sean Payton pull his young third-round wide receiver over and try to line him up, and the line judge on the sideline even coming down to help manipulate his feet and more clearly explain how the rookie's going to need to line up to avoid those flags when the plays are for real. So a lot of stuff going on here at Broncos Park, powered by Common Spirit. Alex Singleton, not on the field, but back in attendance on the sideline, wearing an immobilizer on his thumb. The expectation is, within the next week or so, he will be back in action. I think Sean Payton said yesterday, we're looking at probably 6 more days before he can club it up and get back out there in the middle of the defense. But specifically zeroing in on the running back room, it's really proving to be something that I think is going to be a tough decision for Sean Payton, for Lombardi, his offensive coordinator, and just for the Broncos as a whole as they look to trim down and fine-tune this roster to get down to their final 53. And it seems pretty clear right from the jump that J.K. Dobbins and R.J. Harvey are going to be your 1-2 punch, and they are clearly in front of the rest. And that number 3 running back spot that we've debated about between Jaleel McLaughlin, Audric Estime, Tyler Bidet, and Blake Watson seems more and more firm, like Jaleel McLaughlin, from a skill set standpoint, is isolating himself as that number 3 option. And there's a couple of reasons I think that that's coming into play. One, Jaleel McLaughlin, who admittedly last year when given the opportunities did not maximize those in a way that he could have to have a firmer grip on his standing in the running back room. But he does present a speedy, explosive skill set that doesn't require necessarily a lot of ramp up or a lot of warm up to be able to go in there and be that change of pace back. Audric Estime, while having a significant advantage over Jaleel in a size standpoint, as a bigger body and somebody that you can rely on to be more of a bruiser between the tackles, he takes a little bit more time to get that rhythm going and get it established. And at the number 3 running back slot, it's no guarantee by any stretch that you're going to get the volume of carries that it takes in order to maximize that skill set. So Jaleel seems to be kind of floating around in there, but the number 3 back is also going to have to play a lot of special teams, and Jaleel's best asset as a special teamer probably comes in the return game, where you have Marvin Mims, who's already established himself as an all-pro and Pro Bowl level player in that position. So you're looking at personal protector, maybe you're looking at gunner, and that's where kind of a sneaky, underrated guy who's continued to creep in Tyler Bidet, who already Sean Payton has lauded for his pass protection ability, something else that a number 3 back is liable to do, and being in there with the first team, running first team reps as a personal protector in special teams. Don't be surprised if Tyler Bidet makes this number 3 running back position a much more difficult evaluation than it seems. And Sean Payton alluded to the difficulty that it's going to be when evaluating this room and narrowing it down to 4 or more likely 3 names when he said, quote, "A lot will go into it being the evaluation of these guys. I said this at the start of camp. From experience, a lot of that stuff will sort itself out when we finish playing New Orleans. We'll have a better idea of how that's going. It'll be the body of work ultimately that determines it." So when you're looking at Sean Payton and this coaching staff having to run all the way through training camp and through the preseason into that New Orleans game, we really do have a situation where we could see in that final preseason game 3, maybe 4 running backs play if they really keep it as tightly as they have. And that's kind of been how it's gone. Jaleel McLaughlin has a lot of plays where he pops. He's clearly the leader in the clubhouse in that number 3 spot. Audric Estime getting off to a slow start, but the last 2 out of the last 3 days worth of practice have been pretty significant, noticeable Audric Estime days. And then you have Tyler Bidet mixing himself in on special teams and solidifying some potential there as a personal protector and being able to be moved around, who already has the trust and the faith in Sean Payton, who elected to give him and Bidet the jersey in the playoff game in the wild card round against Buffalo over Audric Estime, the player he picked in the 5th round just a year ago. So this running back position is going to be a fascinating watch, maybe even more complex and complicated than we thought after the arrival of J.K. Dobbins, who is in that number 1 slot with R.J. Harvey and a close number 2. And then you have Jaleel McLaughlin, Audric Estime, Tyler Bidet, and Blake Watson, all of which have unique skill sets that they bring to the table, and all of which can have a picture painted of them that fits that role. And it's going to come down to the preseason games, and Sean Payton alluding to the New Orleans game, to really determine who's going to make it out of that crowded room. And then you throw Michael Burton into the mix, the fullback, who Sean Payton seems to love his fullbacks. So that really impacts the calculus and the math of how many running backs a guy like Sean Payton is going to keep on this team and how that impacts potentially the depth at other positions. Speaking of other positions, the inside linebacker position for the Denver Broncos, which has been bitten pretty bad by the injury bug already, just 10 days or so into camp. We are hoping that gets a little bit of relief if Alex Singleton is able to make his way back in the next week or so. Dre Greenlaw pulling up yesterday on an individual drill. And Sean Payton talked about it afterwards, not being a quad injury, not in the same place that some of his previous nagging injuries have taken place, and being a little relief there. But Sean Payton did elaborate on the idea maybe that they are a little bit thin and injury bitten in that department at yesterday's practice. So, and what I found interesting about Sean Payton's comments and what he said was, obviously other guys step up and get those reps. Knock on wood, fortunately, we've been good here during this camp, but it gives us a chance to evaluate other players. You're seeing Lavelle Bailey. Justin Cernad has obviously had a ton of work. Getting the proper evaluation on these younger players is important. And that is something that factors into these injury discussions, is that, one, there's a 100% injury rate in the NFL, right? Everybody at some point or another as an NFL player is going to get nicked up, banged up. It's the severity and the length of recovery time that tends to vary from case to case. But with the challenging opportunity that Sean Payton has to have depth at these key positions, and the inside linebacker one, considering both of your starters are coming off of pretty significant injuries in their own right in the last year or two in the NFL, Alex Singleton tearing his ACL, Drake Greenlaw popping his Achilles, then having a quad injury before the start of this camp, and now pulling up in a different area during this week's practice, your starters already have significant injury questions around them. One of your key backups in Drew Sanders is going to be out for probably a couple of months with a ligament issue in his foot. And it is going to rely on the Lavelle Baileys and the Justin Cernads, and probably one of the 3 or 4 names we brought to you earlier this week that the Broncos brought in on a tryout practice basis. It is going to come down to those guys and Vance Joseph and Sean Payton's ability to mold them into this defense and their ability to carry things, because as of right now, there's not a ton of faith in the health of this linebacker room, at least not as much that we thought, given the work that Bo Lowry and the strength and conditioning and training staff have been able to do over a body of work of 2 seasons ago. So if I had to put a panic meter on it when it comes to the health of the inside linebacker room right now for the Denver Broncos, it's definitely not cranked all the way up because Alex Singleton should be back in a week. Drake Greenlaw, according to Sean Payton at the podium yesterday, is going to be fine. Just something they have to kind of monitor and soothe out just a little bit. But Drew Sanders being out for a couple of months as a principal backup in that linebacker room. And then the lack of depth around Lavelle Bailey and Justin Strnad with the trial players that they bought, I would probably put it at a 6, maybe a 6.5, because we're still so early in camp, which is a two-edged sword, right? On one hand, you can say we're still so early in camp, there's plenty of time to recover and massage some of this stuff out. But also you could look at it and say, we're a couple weeks into training camp, and we've already had 3 guys pop up with new injuries in that inside linebacker room alone. So I think rather than around a 6.5, maybe flirting with a 7 in terms of how anxious I am about the current health of the inside linebacker room. We will see how it continues to pan out and progress. The Broncos are just a handful of days away from joint practices where they will head to San Francisco and practice with the 49ers, who over the last handful of years, several key 49ers have found their way to migrate over here to Denver. You're starting tackle in Mike McGlinchey, your starting safety in Talanoa Hufanga, and one of your starting linebackers in Drake Greenlaw all now find themselves in Denver Broncos uniforms. And I have a feeling that could create some testiness when those 2 teams bat heads on the practice field. We will continue to monitor everything live here at Broncos Park, powered by Common Spirit for Broncos training camp. Stay locked in to Denver Sports 104.3 The Fan, denversports.com, and across all of our social media platforms here on shows like Denver Sports Daily, The Rundown, Orange and Blue Today, and the litany of content that we have available for you as football is back. The Hall of Fame game was last night, and it really, really feels like we are turning a page very quickly back to that oh-so-familiar feeling of fall football. We will catch you again on Monday, live again from Broncos Park, powered by Common Spirit, with all the news and tips and reactions that the weekend will bring us. We'll see you then.
I do what I love, and love what I do. It's second nature to put in the work.